You're watching Global Trade This Week with Pete Mento and Doug Draper.
Well, welcome to another edition of Global Trade This Week. I am your host, Doug Draper, and with me is my co-host, Pete Mento. The beauty of this show is it happens every week, so the title is simple, and we don't have to worry about it when we're doing our intro here. And obviously, it's brought to you by CAP Logistics. They're the one pushing the buttons and making it all happen. So there you go. We checked that box, Pete, on covering those bases. But I want to talk about you, your glasses, your outfit. You're definitely not Johnny Cash today, and you're in an amazing place called Isle of Palms, South Carolina. So what the hell are you doing down there?
Yes, I am in beautiful Isle of Palms, South Carolina. If you've never been here, everybody watching, this place is gloriously beautiful. And as I was saying before we started, I'm afraid to go on realtor.com and look at housing prices because it will only help reinforce how broke I am by looking at the prices. But I am here in Isle of Palms to give the keynote speech in about an hour or so for the Port of South Carolina, where I'll be talking about the changes to the mostly the U.S. economy that should be happening over the course of the next 5, 10, and 20 years that were really accelerated because of COVID. A lot of the things that we talk about here on the show, Doug. And as you will note, very off-brand today. I'm wearing an actual suit. Yeah. So you normally look like the adult in the room. And I look like I just rolled out of my jail cell. Yes. I'm not going to my parole meeting, and first of all, my suits fit again. Yeah. I've lost over 140 pounds now, so 45 pounds. So my suits fit again, which is wonderful. All those hand-tailored suits I had made in Hong Kong, I can fit into again. But it feels weird, Doug. I don't know how many times since March of 2020, right? Mm-hmm. That you've had to put on the whole getup, like the tie and the nice shoes and all of it. But it does feel, it feels a little foreign. Yeah.
Well, it's got to feel
dressing like a businessman.
Well, if you're dressed like a businessman, that means you're speaking to people, and people are gathered and they're together, and that's a sense of quote unquote normalcy. So I am so excited to see you all gussied up, my friend, and ready to slay it on your keynote here in a little bit. So,
thanks, buddy.
Yeah, I know you got some places to go, so let's get this show on the road. So we'll just
absolutely.
Yeah, why don't you just keep rocking and rolling, and you lead us off?
Okay, so over the weekend we had a really interesting piece of news that was it seemingly dropped out of nowhere, which is probably the worst metaphor I could use to talk about this particular topic. But the Chinese had a successful launch of what many believe to be the first hypersonic ballistic missile. What is it? Why does it matter? Mm-hmm. Well, one of the great frontiers in weapons research is a capability that a government would be able to deploy of a nuclear missile that would be able to go many times the speed of sound. Why? Well, most of the missile defenses that have been built around the world have been set up for intercontinental ballistic missiles, ones that go up into the air, way up into space, and then return back down in what are called MIRVs, multiple re-entry vehicles. Mm-hmm. That's not the case of what we're talking about here. We're talking about a suborbitable rocket that goes anywhere from 3 to 7 times the speed of sound. This particular rocket went around the entire Earth in less than 10 minutes. And it would have been able to, if it was nuclear tipped, pretty much from what we understand, been able to have gone through any missile defense system that we have in the United States. Now, the Chinese are saying that they were just testing out a new rocket ship. The United States is saying, oh, I don't think so. And many people are saying that because this actually happened in August, so it happened a while ago, and it's just being reported on now, that this was the impetus for the Japanese, Korean, Australian, U.S. new treaty to defend one another that came out just a few weeks ago. And also, there is rampant speculation that the U.S. has had this technology for quite some time. And you guessed it, the Chinese base theirs on stolen technology from the United States. So we'll see, but what does this have to do with trade? It has a lot to do with trade, actually. because the Chinese, of course, are going to use this and report on it months before we're about to start negotiating again the trade agreement. We all want to avoid another Cold War. The best way to do that is to try to end this trade war. Countries that are trading, countries that have excellent economic relations, they tend not to get engaged in really bad military action. So, Doug, really that's the first part of the conversation this week. That's my first big topic. How do we avoid a Cold War by trying to get rid of this trade war?
Yeah, it's interesting. I saw that pop up on a feed this morning as well. So I think the other piece, so one comment about the device itself, and then I'll comment on your thoughts there. But apparently this can also be maneuvered, right? The trajectory of the thing, of the type of missiles we've looked at, is it's going to go here. It goes up and then back down. But apparently this one can be maneuvered and changed. So even if there's something going anti-forces to take it down, they can basically turn left or right like Mario Kart and avoid anything. So that was the other piece that I noticed and everything. So crazy stuff. And I'll tell you this, there's two things. One, the Chinese are impeccable on their timing. They know how to drop information positively or negatively to put themselves in a position of strength, which I think is what they've done with this. But it also helps the United States in the sense of having a common enemy will align and bind people together, right? We've seen that time and time again, and I won't even go down a wormhole, but all of a sudden there's some war or common enemy when we need to align and bring the nation together. So this could be interesting to see how this definitely goes with the trade, but Chinese is always good with their timing. I have to give them credit for that. They know how to manipulate that, but I think it will be a rallying point in some degree in helping trade relations with alignment and agreement on what our elected officials are going to be doing. So it's interesting, man. You bring up some awesome points.
Well, it certainly did align us internationally on a mutual defense treaty. So we can start there. And if it can align us there, Lord knows it can probably align us economically. I think you had a great point.
Yeah, crazy. All right. Well, I'm going to jump into mine, my friend. And you know me and acronyms. I'm a big fan of it. BOPUS, which we've talked about well over a year ago. But the new one that I made up, and if anybody wants to use it moving forward, it's cool. I'm okay with it. You don't have to license it with me. But it's called SCARP, which is the Supply Chain Aid Recovery Program, right? That's my term, and I think it's going to stick. But it's all related
Okay.
to Biden and the government working on the port congestion. The latest and greatest is they're saying they're making some headway with the longshoremen trying to go to a 24-hour operation. They're talking to Walmart and some big box retailers to have their operations run 24 hours a day. I know that FedEx and UPS have also talked about that, which is great. I think it is great. And will it assist and help with this process? I think it will. But you can't legislate your way to prosperity. So I think that there will help a little bit, but I don't think it's going to do as much as we want. And this is why, right, is the connectors. We've spoken about this before, Pete. If you listen to what has just been discussed, it's let's fix the port, which is origin, and let's make the warehouses where this stuff is being received, ask them to work longer. What about all the connectors in between, right? What about the warehouses, the trucking, things of that nature? And you're like, yeah, well, just, FedEx and UPS are in the mix, so all the problems will be solved. Well, not really, because the infrastructure, not only in the U.S., or not the infrastructure, but, most of the service providers are small, it's decentralized, and to connect and align all of the different components that take a piece of cargo or your Xbox from point A to point B touches a lot of people. And to get all of those guys aligned and to say, hey, can you work 24 hours a day? Like, all right, well, it's going to cost you a lot more money. And, oh, by the way, I don't have any drivers. So in this example, let's talk about trucking companies. There's like 3.5 million truck drivers out there, and 90% of those operate with fleets that have 6 trucks or fewer. which means there's a lot of mom and pops out there which are making their living as trucking. So do you think that they have the capacity to work 24 hours a day? Do they have the resources, the bodies? The answer is no. And do you think they have the technology to create an API to give visibility? The answer is no. So there certainly are some companies out there that have owned the rails, I've referred to that in the past, that are vertical in nature, like UPS, like FedEx, that can make these decrees and say, we're going 24 hours a day. But there is a lot of people in our supply chain, domestically and internationally, that are decentralized, and to make a broad brush stroke that everybody in the supply chain is willing to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's unrealistic, and we are going to pay out the nose to provide those extended hours of operation. So I like it, I get it, I think it's important, but we're only focused on the origin and the destination, and in between therein lies the rub, which is going to be the most challenging aspect of this whole discussion. So there you go.
I'm with you. I think that there's a piece that we're not paying enough attention to, which is even when mom and pop find a way to have drivers available, do those drivers have a Detroit card? Can they get on the port to turn these things around? We are in a security situation right now where many of the drivers simply are unable, for whatever reason in their background, to be able to obtain identification through background checks to be able to service these ports. And I was a little snarky on social media last week between LinkedIn and Twitter when I just said, hooray, the government's fixed it all. We're going to have the ports open. And the reality is exactly what you said. We're not going to get anywhere because the ports being opened doesn't solve the problem of there not being enough trucks, chassis, containers, drivers, space on the rail. It doesn't help anything. And then technology on top of that doesn't help if the physical infrastructure can't keep up with the technology. This is a mess that only gets better through mass global cooperation and tremendous technology. Technology has to be adopted, and cooperation starts with people agreeing to work with one another. Right now, in this country, we can't agree on anything. And internationally, we're not even sitting down. We're so myopic right now. We're so individually focused on our own recovering economies and trying to find ways to look for just a foothold after coming out of the coronavirus and the pandemic, hoping that we have. But the last thing on our mind is looking for ways to cooperate internationally. Doug, this isn't going anywhere anytime soon, pal.
Yeah, it's nuts. I mean, it's a quick soundbite. It sounds good. It validates that the government's trying to do something, but that's we'll see. Give them a little bit of credit for that, but it doesn't, like you said, solve it. Anyway, all right. So, what's your halftime, my friend? It was funny. But before we jump into this, and people that watch the show, I emailed Pete earlier and I said, don't Casey Kasem me on the halftime.
That's right.
Which means,
that's right.
Pete's had some very poignant type of halftime, and I always come in with some half-assed, funny type of, and the two just don't align. So I'm like, don't
talk about cat leukemia on your halftime today or something, right? So for those of you who don't know, there's an excellent clip that you should probably check out on YouTube of when Casey Kasem came out of a really, high, happy story, and he had to do a long-distance dedication about someone's family member who died, and he just loses it. And he recorded it, so it's not like it was live on the air, but Casey Kasem was definitely not a guy you would imagine just dropping F-bombs left and right. And it's a very fun listen. So the joke is, don't Casey Kasem me during halftime today. And I'm not going to.
All right, cool.
My halftime right now is, it's the middle of October. Right now, it is the fall season. And boy, do people get excited about putting pumpkin spice in everything. I am a firm believer that pumpkin spice is an abomination. It is a crime against man and humanity. Pumpkin is a flavor that belongs in just a handful of things. Soup and pie, and that's about it. Maybe muffins, possibly a couple of baked goods. But the idea that coffee should taste like anything but coffee is wrong. Pumpkin spice is the quickest way for me to determine if someone else and I are probably going to have some other sort of dining problem down the road, like pineapple pizza or Mexican food that was made by somebody from California. Like we're just not going to get along.
Mhm.
Okay, so pumpkin spice to me is one of the greatest indicators of personality that there is when it comes to if we're going to get along from a dining perspective or not, Doug. And I've never asked you this, but are you a pumpkin spice person?
Well, as far as ingesting it and the lattes, not a big fan, Pete, but this is going to sound kind of weird. I took a bath last night and I had a pumpkin spice bath bomb. So I don't know what that plays out to be. You got to figure that one out.
Did you have on like a hair cover with your rubber ducky like Ernie did
Yeah.
in Sesame Street? So you're not down with the PSL,
I,
huh?
I,
I guarantee you, I
oh, I know where
guarantee
this is
you
going.
that I guarantee you that Keegan, like, he's probably got pumpkin spice latte incense and he's like doing yoga somewhere in the woods and like, you know, meditating to the great elk in the sky and all that other stuff. I guarantee you he is all about the PSL. That is like the most Colorado snowboard and hippie thing I could possibly imagine. He's on the other side of us right now going, oh, don't even, I drink the finest coffee. I cold press my coffee myself. It's cold pressed by a lady in Boulder, Colorado, who does it with her armpit twice a week.
Yeah.
Like, it's something crazy. He probably pays $75 a cup for the coffee
Yeah.
he drinks or something silly like
Yeah.
that.
We'll have to.
All right, what do you got for halftime?
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear it.
We'll have to do that. Well, the food must be the
Yeah.
theme, right? Because I saw something about Wendy's, which actually is my favorite fast food burger joint. I really like Wendy's.
Oh,
Come on now.
no.
It's good. Come on, you
Anyway,
kidding me? Anyway,
it's my daughter's favorite
so
too. Go
basically
ahead.
they're guaranteeing crispy fries, and if your fries are not crispy and you don't like them, 100% guarantee you can turn them back in and get a new set. So
Wow,
that's pretty legit. I'm a big fan. I'll give
that
those
is.
guys a thumbs up. Troy, he's more of a Good Times. I don't know if they have Good Times burgers across the country, but he's more of Good Times here local, the local guy.
No,
But hey, bravo,
no.
Wendy's. I love it. And
I do too. Yeah.
yeah,
I think their fries are trash, so we can start right there. I think when I was a kid, I couldn't stand going to Wendy's. My mom loved going
yeah,
there, so I hate it. I am a Whataburger guy, so I'm a Texan, so I'm a Whataburger guy, and I can hear everybody right now. Oh, whatever, Whataburger. You just don't like In-N-Out. I love In-N-Out. I think In-N-Out's fantastic, but it's mom's cooking.
mm,
I'm a Texan, and I love Whataburger. When it comes to the big three, McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's, I love Burger King. And the big reason for that is I got fired from McDonald's when I was 16 years old. I got fired. A buddy of mine got fired when we were behind the dumpster eating McDonald's that we weren't supposed to be eating, and that was the reason we got fired anyway. So imagine like 16-year-old me having to go home to my parents and say, yeah, your genius son just got fired from McDonald's. So the fact you're a Wendy's guy, Doug, that bugs me.
oh, come on now.
So bathtub with your bath bomb, eating
Yeah.
Wendy's. I mean, were you watching Downton Abbey while you were doing it too? For God's
No, it
sakes,
was
this
weird.
just
I
kills
had a
me.
Frosty in one hand. It started melting the whole 9 yards. So, see, the funny thing
And
is,
that's not even no.
but
Frosties aren't even shakes. How can you be a burger place that doesn't sell actual milkshakes? That's just soft serve ice cream in a cup.
yeah, it's beautiful. I love it. And the funny thing is that people watching this are not really sure if I'm serious or not about my bath comment. And the other piece that caught my attention is that you got fired because you and a buddy were hanging out behind a dumpster. So I'm not even sure
Yeah, eating.
if you were smoking or eating or doing whatever, but that's the one thing that caught my attention.
Yeah, you're making the logic leap pretty well there. We were eating Big Macs for a reason
Yeah.
behind the dumpster. Yeah, but here's the thing, Doug. Right, I don't take baths because that's just like, fat guy stew. Me sitting in a bath full of hot water by myself
Yeah.
is not anything that needs to happen. I've always been a shower guy. But let's wrap it up
Yes,
for halftime. Brought to you by,
we're going down
Cap Logistics
we're going down a wormhole
for
pretty fast.
for
So
this week. But so Wendy's versus Burger King guy, definitely. And by the way, favorite place for fries right now for me is Red Robin because they keep bringing them. They just keep bringing them.
yeah.
They'll keep bringing them. I haven't had French fries in 10 months,
Mm.
so I don't even know what I'm talking about. I haven't had a piece of bread since December.
Mm.
I don't even know. I don't know what I would do if I had a carb right now. I'd probably go on a shot.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, my next topic
Yes.
is one that I put a lot of thought into. I'll actually be talking about it partly now. One of the problems we have with port congestion that we don't talk about enough is there is a finite supply of equipment. And when we say equipment in our business, in whatever mode of transport it is, we have different things that we mean. So equipment in over the road, we're talking about the power that moves it, the tractor trailer. There's a trailer that's associated with different types of trailers, right? So many people who are interested in or understand over the road capacity, that tractor trailer has a lot of technology going on there, a lot of different types of trailers that are associated with what moves, sizes, technology, air ride, all kinds of things, air conditioned versus reefers, etc. And for ocean freight, we also have the chassis that the containers go on, different size chassis, open tops, right? All kinds of different things that happen with it. And these ocean containers have been at a premium because they're simply not being returned. Okay, well, why aren't they being returned? They're not being returned because they're taking so long to get off the vessels that are floating off of Long Beach or Savannah or wherever. There are 67 ships off of Long Beach right now, buddy. Okay, so when they do get off, then they've got to find a driver. And from what I understand, it's taking anywhere from somewhere ridiculous, like 14 to 17 days right now to get them out of Long Beach. Then, you're getting them to where they got to go. And sometimes the cargo owner is using these containers as warehouses, as storage before they take them off. So you could have a container locked up for months before it eventually makes its way back to a position where it can be used by someone else to move cargo out of this country or go back empty to be moved, to have someone else move cargo. Why is that such a big deal? Because the inability to have this equipment available is stalling. It's stalling our ability to clear this backlog. It's stalling overseas' ability to continue to keep that supply chain moving, to not only move product to us, but all over the world, because exports make jobs. And as foreign economies have more and more excess income, they buy more and more foreign products, which means exports out of America. And much of their production is being done by automation, by technology, and those are all very important parts of our economy. And until those things break, they don't need more of our stuff. So as crazy as it sounds, there's like this wild trickle-down economics that's being impaired by our inability to turn containers around, man. So, and we're at a point now where millions of dollars in demurrage, we're probably talking hundreds of millions now at this point, still aren't doing enough to get this problem fixed. And I think, Doug, this is something where we need Elon Musk to, go on the Joe Rogan Experience and just get stoned out of his mind, the two of them, and have him sit down with the Boring Company and just decide we're going to move everything in a container, everything on a tractor trailer, underground through the Boring Company. Nothing else over the roads anymore. No more chassis, no more truck drivers. It's all going underground. And that's how we're going to fix all of this, because until we come up with a radically new way to manage this problem, how do we fix it? Honestly, how do we fix it?
Yeah, it would. The one thing I would say is the whole concept of supply chain and seeing all this, it's only as strong as your weakest link, right? And you can get them through the port as fast as you want. And we talked about the connectors and all that kind of stuff, but it's just amazing that this thing is truly a chain. A container that is now held up off the coast of LA should have been unloaded back on a boat and probably in South America with an export going back to wherever it's supposed to be going. So the chain concept and even the visual is amazing. How things are going right now, and the unintended consequences of the supply chain being disruptive, we're going to see that for a very long time. There's going to be all these things that pop up like, why the hell is this so expensive back there? Or why did this company go out of business because of whatever? And I think you will be able to see a dotted line and follow the chain on how this whole container situation is going to impact things we never thought they would have impacted. And we talked about this before, Pete, but I think that the farming industry and agriculture is going to be really impacted. And an example, and then I'll jump into my final comments, is there's no containers inland. That's where the farms are, so they can't get the stuff out of America. And when they ship it over, their customer overseas is going to find an alternative supplier. And once they find that supplier, it's going to be real difficult for a farmer in Iowa or Kansas to try to get that business back. So what's the trickle down effect of that, right? Simply because the container doesn't want to get off the coast. So 100%, I think it's just going to be this rolling one thing after another. It's going to be interesting. So
Agreed, buddy.
yeah.
Yeah.
So here's my take. I'm going to end it off with something that I'd like to say is that the final mile or the last mile, Pete, that's pretty much where all the cool kids are going to be hanging out in 2022. And what I mean by that is that there's going to be technology, interest, and some real creativity of what's going to happen with final mile deliveries in 2022. I think electric vehicles have a lot more traction and immediate application on the final mile. Hey, let's do an electronic truck that can drive a truckload of stuff from Denver to New Hampshire. But I think where you're going to see a lot of traction, a lot of creativity, and a lot of new companies popping up is how do we do the final mile, right? I mean, literally, Pete, I'm not kidding. Yesterday in my neighborhood, saw a FedEx truck, a UPS truck, and 2 Amazon vans drive down my street, right? And all of them were burning fuel and going from there. So I think it's going to be an easy. No, let me rephrase that. It's not easy, but it's going to be a very visible solution that people want to see. And if I saw 4 electric vehicles zipping up and down my street yesterday, I'd be like, okay, cool. We're trying to make some progress and we get it. So I think that you're going to see a lot of investment and a lot of progress made with final mile electrification in 2022. I think there's going to be a lot of investments, and I think we're good there. So the last thing I'll say in this, Pete, and then I'll make your comment because I know you got to go. But I think if you, from a business perspective, if you want to make money, right, on the electrification of the final mile, you need to be selling these companies the picks and the axes to make those things work. So you don't necessarily have to come up with the electric vehicle or the monumental money to buy this company to take it on a trajectory across the company. But if you're selling the services and the supplies and the necessities to make that final mile machine work, I think that's a great opportunity for companies to get creative as well.
Yeah, I agree. I have to always temper my remarks now about this particular subject because my day job is I work for a multi-billion-dollar international e-commerce company, one of the biggest. So, I always have to mention I'm speaking for myself on this topic and not for the company I work for. But when we discuss this idea of final mile, I think that what's always fascinated me is how willing we are as consumers to give up that last part of the delivery. If you go to a Whole Foods now, there are lockers where Amazon will leave something for you. And it's kind of like BOPUS, where you buy online and pick up on the store, but you purchase it on Amazon, and they'll say to you, if you want to do a delivery, we can have it for you at the Whole Foods, in your town. It can be there this afternoon, no additional charge. And then you drive, you get in your car, you use your gas or your electricity or your bicycle or you jog or whatever you do, right, to go down to that Amazon to go pick up your stuff. And then if it doesn't fit or you don't like it, you bring it back to Whole Foods and you drop it off for a return. And then you probably buy, a $17 pound of hamburger while you're there as well. And it's just like this perfect circle of unnecessary consumerism that's being done all in one place. Again, those are the thoughts and opinions of Pete Mento, Mento LLC. And this idea that the final mile has to be solved by the seller, I wonder to what degree the buyer is willing to do any of the work in order to save money or time. Mm-hmm. When you used to talk about BOPUS before, I was like, oh God, Doug with this BOPUS. You were absolutely right. There is so much of the sale that happens in e-commerce where there are people who are willing to get it quicker and possibly cheaper if they're able to buy something closer to them, which ultimately is to the benefit of the seller because they don't have to sell something on the other side of the country to somebody and pay additional shipping to get it there. So everybody wins. So is this another way by maybe having something where someone can come and get it, that the final mile can partially, it doesn't work for everything, but for some things, maybe we can deal with that final mile problem. I don't know, and luckily that's not something I've got to figure out. But I do think it's a fascinating thing. And I think also this is a place where the Postal Service, God help me for saying this is a place where the Postal Service with P.O. boxes could really make a difference. There's postal boxes, they could be sort of those Amazon drop boxes for every city in America if they wanted to.
Yeah, that's a whole nother topic with the wormhole of the USPS and their lack of awareness. And
dude, I'm a fan. Don't start with me. Don't start with me.
All right, we'll leave it at that. So before you take us out of here, I think we're on the same page. 2022 is going to have some creative solutions. You're going to see some pretty cool stuff coming down the pike to figure out the final mile. So anyway.
All right, well, I know don't you ever talk foul of my U.S. Postal Service, man. I've got some, I think they've been given a bad rap. But in any case, we should do that. We should just have a point counterpoint on USPS sometime. Yeah. And that's going to do it for this week, for Global Trade This Week, brought to you by Cap Logistics. I love getting the opportunity every week to talk about topics in international trade, economics, global logistics, e-commerce, you name it. And as always, our show is brought to you by the very wonderful people at Cap Logistics. You can learn more about them and their services at caplogistics.com. We want to thank them. And as always, we want to thank Keenan, who is back in Colorado pushing the buttons. I guess I should tell you both, I will not be here next Monday. I will be in beautiful Hawaii.
Wow.
On vacation with my two boys, my two buds. We're going on a long overdue vacation to basically get a little aloha and deal with a friend's family issue. He's Hawaiian, and not to make things too low, we're gonna spread some ashes. We're gonna party, remember someone's father, and have a pretty awesome time.
Nice.
So I will not be here. I'm gonna be full grass skirt.
Good for you.
Aloha shirt. Yeah, drinking rum, soaking in the sunset. So I don't know what you and Keenan are going to talk about. I just know the show's not going to be as good because I'm not going to be on.
No, come on now.
That's all I can say.
We're going to take it to the next level. We're going to get creative
and
do something different.
You're going to be awesome.
Yes.
Doug, you're going to be awesome, but you're going to have to carry the show because Keenan's going to be the co-host.
Yeah.
And he only has about 14 years of life, let alone experience, to be able to talk about this. He's going to have to get a permission slip from his parents to be on the show.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes.
Here's what's going to Pete, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to juggle, and I'm going to throw it up over on this side of the screen, and it's going to pop over on Keenan's side. And we're going to do some magic like that. But anyway, Pete, I know you're going to crush it. Always, you're going to crush it today. Yes. So good luck.
Yes. As always, thank you to everyone who supports us. Thank you for listening to all of our listeners, all of our watchers. We do appreciate the support. We thank Cap Logistics so much for all the support, financial and otherwise. And we can't wait to see you again next week for another edition of Global Trade This Week. Take care, everybody.
Take care,
Thanks again. Bye.